I am Darius Todd, the son of DeLeon and Gail Todd. I am the brother of Sean and Damian Todd. I am the husband of Jackie Todd. I am a leader in the community. I am a friend to a stranger. I am a mentor to those who have no direction. I am a coach. I am a strong tower for those who are leaning and falling short. I am a minister of the gospel, and I am called to help people to make their vision of their life visible with their eyes. Yeah, for me, the whole process of becoming a man was not very easy because I didn't feel like I had a lot of good role models. Okay. My father was a great role model. However, I didn't really ever feel like I could attain his stature. Right. And so there were areas of my life that I wanted him to be something different than what I received, but I didn't understand the parameters that he was working under. Therefore, when I was 20, I went through a process of having failed in many areas of my life that I thought were going to be amazingly prosperous. I had a recording studio. I also was going to school. I also had a good job working for the IRS. I was a federal employee. In the midst of all of that, I lost everything. So after flunking out of school for the third time, losing my good paying job, our recording studio and the partnership, the team that I had together, all within a week, we fell apart. And I felt like I'd lost everything. I was living in my car for a while. I was scraping to make ends meet. I was literally fishing for nickels and pennies and quarters in my car to go to HEB and buy hot dogs and whatnot because I did not have a whole lot of foundation and support. But the moral of the story is when I finally did start to get back on my feet, I started to realize I can't keep doing the same thing that got me here. When I understood that, there was a moment where I've shared with you before, I tried to commit suicide and that didn't work. And then months later, I tried to commit suicide again and that didn't work. And so I said, you know what? Not only do I have to make a change, but I can't do this by myself. And so what I wound up doing is something I don't believe anybody should ever do. I went to my closet, I got my Bible, blew the dust off of it, and I sat on my bed and I cried out to God. And I said, Lord, I can't be who you want me to be. I don't understand this life the way that you're encouraging me. I don't understand why I'm going through all of this trauma. And I laid down and I said, God, I'm going to give you one chance. I'm going to throw this Bible open. And just like before, if I don't understand it, I don't understand why I don't know why you don't speak to me the way you do others. But if I don't understand it this time, I'm never coming back this direction. And when I laid on my bed, I threw the Bible open, I threw it open, and it just so happened to open up to Deuteronomy, the 38th chapter. Deuteronomy 38 is broken into two parts, a very short part in the front and a long part at the end. The short part in the front said, my son, if you'll be diligent to follow my commands and do the things that I'm encouraging you to do today, you'll be blessed in the city, you'll be blessed in the field, you'll be blessed when you come in, you'll be blessed when you go out. Everything you do will be blessed. And I'm like, man, this is the life that I'm looking for. Why do I not have this life? And then right around verse 13 or 14, it begins to say, but because you've chosen not to live the way that I've told you to live, you're cursed in the city, you're cursed in the field, you're cursed, you're cursed, you're cursed. And I started to realize this is the life I'm living. And so in that moment, when I read that scripture, I heard God's voice telling me the way that you're living, you're going to fail. But if you will give your life to me, then I'll show you how to live full. In that moment, I said, okay, God, listen, you got my attention. I hear you. But here's my problem. I'm not going to stop cussing. I'm not going to stop drinking. I'm not going to stop sleeping with women. I'm not going to stop smoking. I'm not going to stop. I gave him a whole list of I'm not gonna's. Okay, because I know that's also in your book, and I'm not going to stop this. You're not going to stop me from doing what I enjoy. But here's my bargain with you. I want you to come in and make me the man that you want me to be. because the man that I'm making myself is surely going to die. I
Mm.
tried to kill myself. And then, if I'll be honest, I always wondered if some woman's husband would come and kill me one day because I was not a good person.
Mm.
And in that moment, when I said, Lord, I want you to come in and make me the man that you want me to be, that's when everything changed. The space where I went through all of that trauma, now our ministry is operating 1 mile from that place where I tried to end my life.
Mhm.
And now my life is used to help people's lives begin.
Mhm.
So my life before that moment was strictly to take.
Mhm.
My thoughts of everything that I was doing in my life was I would help you, but it was so that I could get something. I would do something. I would make this music so that you could praise me,
Mhm.
so that I could feel validated. I would make I would do the computer work that I was doing and serving at the IRS, but it was mainly so that they could give me more paycheck.
Mhm.
What happened in that moment is I started to realize how selfish I was. And I started to realize that, I gave out all these stipulations that I'm not going to, and this is what makes me happy, and these are the things that validate me. When I gave that up, he began to show me, I made you to give. I made your entire life so that you can sow your life into others. And from that moment forward, everything made sense. Because I started to realize, why is it that my parents, my family being in the military, um, we were always that family that had all the GIs, all the new inductees into the military. During Christmas and Thanksgiving, our household was full. And so when I took the opposite direction and began to be the inauthentic version of who God created me to be, that's when the detriment and that's all when all the devastation happened in my life. But since then, everything that I do is to give everything away, and without consequence, without cause. Um, and in giving it all away, I have more than I could have imagined. I'm like an OG creative, right? Okay, so I started my own business when I was 12. My business was graphic design. And I love art, and so I love the creative process. And my dad gave me pictures of his grandmother, his mother, and my mother. And the very first picture that I created for my business was a collage, a hand-drawn masterpiece of generations. And in creating that, my father took Polaroid pictures and sent those Polaroid pictures to my family members, and people started buying them. And I said, wow, you know, they see value in what I'm able to create. Then I started working in music, and our whole family is musical. My mother, she has 4 siblings. They were the original Jackson Five. They used to travel all over North Texas and Oklahoma and Louisiana, performing all over and doing all types of juke joints and stuff like that. My father went to school with a young man named Rick James, and up in Buffalo, New York. And my uncle was a funk musician in that area. And so music was always a part of us. I learned music at a young age, and I started to use that as another creative outlet to do what I do. Um, and so I've had to balance always the analytical side of my life with the wild and free, stay up all night and sleep all day kind of person, right? So the creative side of me is still active. And what my responsibility now, though, because again, I was using it for my own aggrandizement and my own praise, my focus now is to enrich the lives of the people that are listening and viewing and participating. So whether it is a sermon where, I do my best to drop as many bars as possible to help people to really be able to grab a hold of the lyrical and audible poetry that is speaking in public. And then secondly, I'm still a musician. I still create. I didn't show you guys, but we have a recording studio in this facility, and we use it to create some amazing work. But a big part of what I do now also is mentoring. I mentor those creatives, giving them a space to where they can really be able to express themselves authentically, but in a place where they can grow. But as I have received the truth and the power and the strength of who God is for my life, I just want to share who he is. Everything that has happened in my life has come out of a sincere desperation for the truth. And as I have allowed that desperation to lead me, God has given me so many pure, authentic, real opportunities to sow into the lives of those who don't have that experience. And therefore, we have a ministry that is built on truth and the strength of that truth, and being able to convey that in such a way that it will impact people's lives the same way that He's impacted mine.
Yeah.
If we can do that, I think we're doing okay. And that means also that there are people that don't look like church. There are people that don't look like, as I look at the book of Acts, the second chapter, they were literally transformed by the Holy Spirit in the upper room. And in that transformation, they went out into the street. And as I like to say, they began to speak the language of the street. But you don't have to dance and look the way that we are. What we're going to do is deliver to you the truth of the gospel. And when that happens, it will transform your life.
Right.
And I'm not asking you to be like me. As a matter of fact, they became a community of believers at that moment. That was the beginning of the church age. And in that moment, that's when the transformation happened. And everyone began to speak the same way. They began to act the same way. They began to love the same way. They began to meet each other's needs the same way. They began to pour out to other people's lives the same way. And there was no formula. There was no preconceived notion except we're going to be now conformed to the image of Christ. And what did He do? He healed, He delivered, He saved, He mentored, He brought them the truth. And that's what changed their lives. Um, so actually, that's a difficult space for me. I don't receive very well. And I know that. That's actually something that I'm learning to um, become better in. I'll give you probably the biggest time of gratitude was my 30th birthday. Um, my wife decided to throw a surprise birthday party for me, and it was outrageous. So, what she did is she arranged for some people that I really cared for, some people that I hadn't seen in years, to come to this party. She also arranged for the entirety of the 400 people that I work with to be invited to this space. She arranged for my mother, who became a wedding planner after our wedding. She arranged for her to put everything together, and it was so beautiful. And believe it or not, I don't like being the center of attention. But the moral of the story is that was when I really started to realize just how embarrassed. I'm even embarrassed right now. Can you see I'm blushing? um, uh, how embarrassed I get, and also how difficult it is for me to receive, because I've been a giver for so long, and I don't need to receive anything in return. And now, as a pastor, the people of this church, I don't understand why they want to give gratitude so much for what I'm doing, because I don't consider what I'm doing anything special. I'm just being who I'm supposed to be. Pastor Paul Bunton was the founder of this ministry. He was wounded in Vietnam. He didn't plan to be in Vietnam. When he was wounded, he was shot in the neck and paralyzed from the neck down. When you look at him today, you wouldn't think that. You wouldn't know that he was a quadriplegic at one time. He got up off of that sick bed and worked in ministry for over 30 years. There was a young man that came to me just at the transition when he was going to retire. And he said, "Man, Darius, how are you going to fill his shoes? How are you going to?" I mean, this man was literally a walking miracle, double Purple Heart Bronze Star, preached for 30 years, and was the one that helped to change your life. How are you going to fill those shoes? But the Lord gave me wisdom. He said in that moment, He's taking his shoes with him. You have your own shoes. Don't compare. For those that came before you, those that laid the foundations, those that went through hardship and challenges before you to help you to become who you are, honor them by living the life that you're called to live. And as I've continued to do that, and people want to turn and give me accolades, I don't consider it anything special. I'm just following in the footsteps of those who came before, fulfilling my role, not trying to do what they were called to do, but truly living according to the authentic purpose that God has created me for.
Mm.
What's happening in the world right now is our level of understanding of what true intimacy is has been so perverted and so challenged. When I gave you the part of my story where I talked about God, I'm not going to stop this, I'm not going to stop this, I'm not going to stop this, because those are the things that make me feel loved. Those are the things that make me feel important. Those are the things that make me feel that I have a purpose. One of those things was, if I can be plain, a body count. Okay, for men, our responsibility, a part of it is our masculine responsibility in this world is to go and to slay as many as possible. I'll say slay as many dragons, and I'll say that on purpose because ultimately what we are dealing with is not the effect of the action of that level of intimacy, which is a farce of intimacy. But we have really gotten to a place where we think that we can act upon um, our ingrained emotion to conquer, our ingrained emotion um, to receive as opposed to give. Okay, so here's where that worked for me. My goal, as I was a 21 year old man, was to help as many people to understand how great I was. Okay. And in saying that, I'm not saying just in a level of intimacy with females, but just in general, how great you are as an artist, how great you are as a this, that, the other. And that perversion caused me to want to commit suicide because I found it to be empty. So, what he began to teach me when I gave my life to him and began to learn, he began to teach me that love has many forms. If you look at love in the Greek, there are many different ways to express love, though that one word. I learned that as a new transforming man, that one of the things that I needed was friendship. That was also important to me because growing up in the military, either we were moving or all my friends were moving. And so I learned that I had a callous towards friendship because I didn't need to be sensitive in that area. And so I learned because of that trauma that I didn't want to get close to anybody like that anymore. And so my friendships were very surface. As men, we have a problem with friendships. So what I started doing is I started working with my friends and helping them to understand how we could fully realize how to walk in the true sacrificial love that we're supposed to have in this world. And as I started walking with one friend in particular, I started to realize, man, I really like her. I've not seen any examples of people who've been successful long term with these types of intimate relationships. So I'm just going to hold my peace, but I'm going to hang out with my friend as much as possible. And I lived in Austin at the time, and Jackie is my wife's name, by the way. When one night I was driving back to Austin, and I was sitting at a stop sign waiting for it to turn green. And I was sitting there thinking, man, I don't want to get married, but if I ever do, God, can you make her just like Jackie? And so, in that process of me sitting at that stop sign, like waiting for it, well, wait, I need to go. This is just a stop sign. Then I started to really contemplate why am I struggling like this to express this level of love to anyone? And I started to deconstruct the fact that, again, I didn't feel like I had a good example. I felt like the people around me were wayward and they didn't know what to do either. And so I felt like a trailblazer in love. And it was it was different for me. So, long story short, short story longer, I wound up having a moment where I told her, I said, listen, she said, what are we? And I said, oh, we are friends. And she said, well, friends don't hang out like we do. Friends don't get wake up calls. Friends don't go to sleep talking to each other. I said, well, they do in my book. I don't understand. What's wrong with this? And she said, well, if we're friends, then let's be friends. And that was the longest 3 days of my life. She decided that we weren't going to be as personally intimate. And after that 3 days, I came back and we had rehearsal. She's a singer and I'm a musician. And at the end of every rehearsal, we always shut down the place. Everybody would leave and it would just be us talking and hanging out. Well, as she was trying to get away from me, I was like, hey, can we talk? She's like, yeah, we can talk. Talk. It's like, okay, well, can we talk though? And she's like, I'm listening. I said, okay, can we sit down? We sat down on the front porch of this church. We sat there for 4.5 hours. I had shared with this woman everything that I could have ever hidden from everybody. In that moment, I heard the voice again. The Lord said, I have presented to you your wife, but it's your choice. And so I looked at her and I said, what would you do if I asked you to marry me? And being the stern woman she is, she said, I don't know, you'd have to ask. Put a brother right on the spot. I got on my knee and I proposed. No preparation, no ring, no effort other than to say that the pure relationship that we have, I want this to last forever. And from that point, it helped me to understand what true intimacy is. It is that relating fully, completely, without any barriers. So there's a reason I keep that picture of my 18-year-old, 19-year-old self in my office because I'm a murderer. I kill him every day. There is a form of breadcrumbs that a lot of times people miss. Unfortunately, the world and the world system has come and swiped away some of those breadcrumbs, so there is no one way to get to where the destination is. So a lot of times what we do as men, and young men especially, is we try to find our path, but we don't have many mentors. My heart's desire is to mentor as many young men as possible. We in this society have now experienced what we call extended adolescence, where young men that should have received the necessary tools and bricks and foundation to be able to build their lives are now in their 30s still trying to figure it out because we have not many mentors. We have young men that are still experiencing and trying to get out of the habit of playing on video games all day and not having a substantial job that would be able to make a foundation for a family because we have not many mentors nowadays. One of the things that I strive to do is to build young men like that young man that's in that picture, helping them to build the bridge from thinking we knew it all and being able to progress towards a future and a hope. And so what I strive to do is mentor, not only in relational mentoring, but also in business mentoring and also in mentoring in spiritual ways, helping people to have a foundation. So what I desire my legacy to be, just in a short fashion, is to help men that were just like me, to help them to truly identify their calling in life and help them to begin to walk that out. Unlearn areas that are destructive and learn how to be a builder. Many times in life, we are good at destruction. It's easy to destroy. And sometimes unwittingly, unknowingly, because we didn't have a role model.